How's it going, guys? I hope you guys had a great week. So it is Friday, guys, which means it is Gaming News Friday. So today, let's talk about the big 3 news stories that hit this week in our Friday news roundup. So starting us off today, I'm going to talk a little bit about Anthem. So I really thought that this game was massively off the radar. It's been a while since I've done a video on Anthem, but actually on the 15th of November, Jason Schreier of Kotaku wrote an article which effectively implied that BioWare had massive plans to completely overhaul Anthem. So for those of you that don't know much about Anthem, this of course is BioWare's first online shooter. It was a huge disappointment. The game underperformed in many areas. Its mission structure was repetitive, quite dull. Its loot was pretty subpar, and it was full of many bugs and issues and glitches, and there was a huge backlash against the game. And it wasn't a terrible game, but it did need a lot of improvements. It did seem that Anthem was kind of on the way out, and it seemed like BioWare were kind of giving up on the game, particularly when it sort of delayed its release of the Cataclysm event, and also when it gave up and abandoned its roadmap, which it had set out for future content. We then got 2 massive departures from BioWare. Ben Irving, the lead producer on the game, left in August, and then at the end of October, Chad Robertson, who then was the head of live services, also announced that he was leaving BioWare after working for them for many years. We've had articles on how Anthem went so wrong. So Anthem really seemed dead. Well, Jason Schreier has, in this article, he has 3 sources which he quotes in the article, and I'm inclined to kind of believe them, because generally Jason Schreier has been fairly accurate with a lot of his news articles. But in it, according to 3 sources, BioWare have listened to fan feedback and are actually planning a massive overhaul for Anthem. They haven't abandoned the game, and they're actually calling this Anthem 2.0 or Anthem Next. There isn't any clear timeline or details, and they haven't really decided yet how it's going to be distributed, this update, whether it's going to be released all at once in terms of these updates, or whether they're going to do that over an extended period of time, kind of like No Man's Sky was done, or whether this will take the form of a paid expansion that will completely overhaul the game and introduce a lot of improved elements, kind of like Destiny's Taken King. What we do know is BioWare are heavily looking at mission structure, the loot in the game, its world, and all of these elements will change drastically. Whether or not they'll release it as a brand new game, we don't know. If that does happen, that they won't be charging Anthem players full price for the game, which is damn bloody right that they're not going to do that. So this overhaul of the game, it's great. I think it's good that BioWare haven't given up on Anthem. I think it's good that they're going back to the drawing board and having a look at the game. They're also looking at sort of completely overhauling the quest structure and these social aspects of the game, and the terrible sort of difficulties they've had with the progression system and also the world map. They have said that they're thinking of removing this single continuous map that they had throughout, where you could sort of travel and explore this open world. They have actually talked about breaking that down into segments, and the reason they're going to do that obviously is it will be easier to tinker with the game and to tweak it and update it, so that if you introduce a new element or a new update on this part of the map, then it's not going to affect another part, because it's a completely separate area in the world. They have also talked about the fact that they're wanting to reduce the amount of time that you need to go back to Fort Tarsus after each mission, and these things are all great. These things are all definitely issues that need resolving. I think the javelins were still good, and the basic combat and flight mechanics were excellent, but the terrible loot, terrible mission structure, the awful amount of loading screens, and the way that you had to keep going back to Fort Tarsus, these these things really do need to be addressed. So it's great to hear that BioWare are actually focusing on that. It does make me happy to hear that they're doing that. In terms of how they're going to distribute and release this update, I think this should be completely free. I do not think this should be paid DLC. I think for those people that bought the game day one, for those people that, you know, stuck with the game and supported it, I absolutely think that BioWare owe this to the fans and to, you know, people that supported their game to bring this out as free content. I absolutely think they should do that. If it's story content, then I have no issue with kind of, you know, paid DLC. I have no problem with that. But I heavily disagree with you know, them charging £30 for this overhaul, for this, you know, supposed expansion, because the game was released in a broken state. It was released to a substandard standard of quality, and it you know, it should be done as free content. Absolutely, this should be done as free content, and I'm hoping that they're going to go more sort of No Man's Sky rather than what they did with Destiny, because if you do that with the game, it's already struggling to have a player base to play online and to play multiplayer and to match make. And if you introduce it as a paid expansion, you're going to divide the player base even more. And I think it will piss a lot of people off if BioWare choose to do that. And we also got a little snippet of information at the end of this article, which did get me interested and excited, which is, of course, that in addition to BioWare working on Dragon Age 4, they do actually have a new Mass Effect game in very early development at their Edmonton office, which is being directed by Mike Gamble, who of course is a long-time BioWare producer and was heavily involved in the Mass Effect franchise. So that's got me excited. You know, I'm a massive fan of Mass Effect, and while Mass Effect Andromeda wasn't terrible, it was still a disappointment. It didn't live up to the high standards of the original trilogy. So I'm interested to see where they're going to go with Mass Effect and what they're going to introduce. Of course, it's early stages of development, guys, so that could quite literally mean they have Mass Effect written down on a whiteboard with several question marks after it. It could just be in that early sort of conceptualization and, you know, the early kind of ideas, whether or not it's going to be a continuation of from Andromeda, whether or not they're going to sort of scrap Andromeda and forget everything that happened with Andromeda, and they're going to actually, you know, re-look at what story they want to tell, and who knows, I guess we'll have to see. But I'm excited for a new Mass Effect whenever it comes out. Of course, after the disaster and the disappointment that was Andromeda, and particularly Anthem, I am looking at BioWare with caution, and I've never been like that with BioWare before. So I would not be pre-ordering. I would not be buying the game on day one. I would be checking to see what people are saying about it, and it makes me sad to say that about BioWare. But new Mass Effect, that could be very, very cool. But I'm happy to hear that they haven't given up on Anthem completely.